Why play Taric Support? Well, he brings good sustain, he brings great AoE CC, he's a brilliant tanky choice, and he can make his entire team invulnerable. However, he's incredibly mana hungry, especially when spamming heals, and if he can't get onto his opponent, he can get peeled and poked. Taric's passive is after using an ability, he empowers his next 2 basic attacks to gain a massive amount of attack speed and deal additional damage. In addition, these attacks also reduce the cooldown of his basic abilities by a set amount. Taric's Q causes him to heal himself and nearby ally champions. This heal is increased if he has additional stacks of his Q charged up, which he generates periodically. In addition, each time he uses his passive auto attacks, he's granted a stack of his Q stacks. This means Taric can't use his Q unless he's got a stack available. But because his passive auto attacks grant him a stack, and his Q activates his passive, he gets an infinite combo where Q activates his passive and passive activates his Q, which he can keep spamming for tons of damage and heals. Taric's W can be used on an ally champion to grant himself and them a shield, and also creates a tether between them. While tethered, the ally gains bonus armor, and in addition, all of his abilities, including his Q, E, and even his ultimate, are also cast from the ally position. Taric's E is a straight line skill shot which winds up over 1 second. Taric can move during this time, and if a skill shot hits an enemy, they are stunned and dealt damage. Taric's ultimate creates a circle around him which activates after 2.5 seconds. After this time, both he and all ally champions in this area become invulnerable for 2.5 seconds. For combos, you want to start with E, landing it with either yourself or your ally. After this, auto attack twice with your passive into a Q, and then use your passive again into a Q again and over again as needed, using your W to shield, E to stun, and ultimate to invuln as needed. For matchups, Taric does great into champions he can simply run up to and outvalue with his infinite combo, and he can struggle against champions who can easily disengage him or poke him. For runes take this, Glacial is just too good. For build order, start Relic Shield and Pot into a Locket, an early tier and tier 2 boots. After this, complete your Winter Approach and a Knight's Vow before completing your build with any of these as needed. For skill order, start E then W then Q before maxing E then Q then W, taking ult whenever you can. For summoner spells, take Flash and Ignite. Starting the game, your main goals are going to be mitigating the damage you take, proccing your support item, and looking for opportunities to engage on your opponent. As Taric lacks any poke, you always want to be looking for opportunities to trade and go for all-ins. If you or the ally that you're bound to ever get in range where you can land your stun, throw it out. Not only is it great damage, it also allows for very easy follow-up. From here, if you can pair this with CC from your carry, you can easily get onto your opponent and start spamming away with your massive combo. As your Q resets your passive and your passive resets your Q, you now have access to silly amounts of damage and infinite heals. However, this is only good as long as you've got the mana to do so. So as long as you have the mana, you essentially win any extended trades for free. From here, when you hit level 6 and have access to your ultimate, you now have an incredible tool to ignore a ton of their damage. When you have this, use it to win a trade and either get a kill or force your opponent out of lane and convert into an objective. Entering the mid game, you want to take the tower as soon as possible and rotate mid. This will put you and your carry in the center of the map for easy sieging and will allow 2 strong champions to quickly roam to fights and objectives as needed. Entering late game teamfights, you want to play the frontline champion peeling for your carries. When both teams are fully committed to the fight, use your ultimate. You want maximum value from it, but you also want to make sure the other team can't simply disengage. Use E to protect your carry and get your passive off as often as you can.